In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Today we're looking at part 2 of this verse. Yesterday we saw about how the Lord was being led away. And then again we see the people outside circumstances laying hold of a certain man named Simon. Again, now the passive outward behavior of Jesus that we saw in yesterday's episode where he allowed himself to be led away. We see it in one of his children, Simon, a Cyrenian. Now, we don't know whether he was a disciple of Christ or not, but he was close. And so, again, the outward circumstances made it so that they laid hold of him and they made him carry the cross of Christ. This passage is just one verse, and yet there is so much of the way being revealed in Christ and so much of the way being revealed in Simon the Cyrenian. Now, it says that he was a certain man who was coming from the country. He was probably a farmer or a laborer, a man who lived out or worked out in the country, labored all day, and coming and getting ready for the Sabbath of the next day. As he's coming along, he is asked to carry the cross of Christ and to bear it. Now, how many of us envy Simon the Cyrenian? How many of us look at him and say, I wish that was me. What a blessing it would have been. I mean, to be that close to Christ, and not just that close, but to relieve God in his time of suffering. Like, who relieves God? Who gets a chance to relieve him? Who gets a chance to alleviate his suffering? And we think, wow, this is amazing. Whether he knew it or not, the verse from Hebrews 13:2, where St. Paul is encouraging the people to not lose heart, but to continue to entertain strangers and to not stop being hospitable. He says, for by so doing, some have unwittingly entertained strangers. And we think, wow, unwittingly entertained angels, not strangers. He says, do not forget to entertain strangers, for by so doing, some have unwittingly entertained angels. All this to say that we see whether Saint Simon the Cyrenian knew that he was unwittingly entertaining God himself or not. We just envy him. We think, wow, what a beautiful thing that he did, that he carried his cross. Man, I wish I could be like Simon the Cyrenian. The beauty of the gospel is that this scenario, this moment, although it was a real, true, historical moment where a man carried the cross of Christ, that reality, that truth is not limited to 2,000 years ago. You see, the words of Scripture are available to us to live out today, almost, I would argue daily. Who hasn't ever come home from work exhausted, only to find, for example, a phone call asking him to go and help a neighbor or to go and help at church? Who hasn't come home after a long day of laboring and his children or her children want their attention and need some time with their parents? Who has not received a request to serve at church or at a shelter and the answer is, I've been working all day. I'm so tired. I don't have time to go and help. I've got to take care of this. Got to take care of that. You see, inwardly, when we're reading the scripture, there's this sense of meditation and sense of, wow, this is beautiful. But guess what? Simon the Cyrenian had to actually physically carry the cross and move. It wasn't an idea for Simon. It was a reality. It required muscles and mind and effort and focus. And if we envy him, the opportunity is given to us day in and day out to relieve the suffering of God, to relieve him in his suffering. You say, well, the Lord isn't being crucified today. In Matthew 25, he says, when I was hungry and you fed me, I was thirsty, you gave me to drink, I was naked and you covered me, I was in prison and you visited me. And the people said to him, Lord, when did we do these things? And he said, whenever you did it to the least of these, my brethren, you did it unto me. And so we are being asked to unwittingly serve and relieve the suffering of God by doing it to our neighbors and all those around us, the least of these his brethren. The Lord is co-suffering around us. He is carrying and co-suffering with all those who are suffering around us. And so the question is, do we truly envy Simon the Cyrenian? Are we willing to use our bodies, our muscles, our mind, our energy to carry the cross with him, to alleviate his suffering, and so unwittingly relieve the suffering of God himself? May today we become like Simon the Cyrenian, who did not resist the cross of Christ, though he was exhausted, though he had come from the country. May his name and his love, his act of love, be an example of what it means to be called, to be consecrated to the service of our Lord Jesus Christ. Have a beautiful day.